Welcome to all the people that have tuned in to watch this film tonight. I believe there are people tuning in from overseas as well. I'd like to start off by acknowledging that this film screening is being held on the traditional lands of people of the Woiwurrung Nation and pay my respects to elders past, present and future. I should just briefly introduce myself. My name's Andrew Jackson. I'm a freelance journalist. I've been to Palestine twice and I've written numerous articles about Palestine over the years. I'm your facilitator for this evening's screening. The film that you're about to see was made by a Palestinian tour guide, filmmaker and activist, Ehab. He's from Nablus, from the old city. He's what's known as an alternative tour guide. And it's really important to emphasise this because the tourism market in the West Bank is dominated by Israel, alongside of a few approved licensed Palestinian guides who run more touristy type tours. What Ehab shows in his tours is what's really happening on the ground and how Palestinians are affected in terms of the Israeli occupation. With Australians unable to travel at the moment because of the coronavirus restrictions, the relatively new group, Free Palestine Melbourne, came up with the idea of commissioning Ehab to make a film to show what the real impact of the Trump and Netanyahu so-called peace proposal really means for Palestinians in the West Bank. Just before we start the film, I just want to let you know that the chat button is only for use for announcements, but for questions, which you'll inevitably want to ask once you see the film, use the Q&A function. Sit back and enjoy or I shouldn't say enjoy because it will probably be disturbing. But keep in mind, if you want to ask questions, use the Q&A function.
إسرائيل عندما احتلت الأراضي الفلسطينية أو عندما أقيمت دولة الاحتلال على أساس وعد بلفور الذي كان يتحدث عن دولة يهودية في فلسطين التاريخية من النهر إلى البحر. هذا هو الاتفاق الاستعماري مع الصهيونية، ولذلك هي صفقة القرن تأتي الآن بعد 100 عام من وعد بلفور، وهي جاءت في 2017 ووعد بلفور في 1917 بعد 100 عام لكي تستكمل تنفيذ ما تبقى من وعد بلفور وهي يهودية الدولة. وهذا يقتضي أن يعني المشروع أن ينفذ على مراحل طويلة المدى لأنه لا يمكن تحقيقه في مرحلة واحدة. في عام 48 فشلت إسرائيل في استكمال المشروع. أو نجحت في تنفيذ جزء كبير منه، ولكن لم تنجح في استكمال مع عملية التطهير العرقي لتنشئ دولة يهودية. فلذلك بقي الفلسطينيون في فلسطين يفوقون عدد اليهود في فلسطين التاريخية. ونحن الآن بعد عام 2016 نفوق عدد اليهود بما لا يقل عن 80 إلى 100 ألف مواطن، وبالتالي هذا شكل أزمة كبيرة. لذلك جاءت صفقة القرن لتستكمل المرحلة الأخرى من عملية الدولة اليهودية حسب وعد بلفور، وهذا يعني السيطرة على المزيد من الأراضي، تضييق الخناق على الفلسطينيين. فشل مشروع التهجير القسري كما رأيتم في الخان الأحمر وفي مناطق كثيرة جدا. هذه الأربع خطوط الأساسية في عملية الضم. إذا ضم الأغوار والسفوح الشرقية، ضم مناطق خلف الجدار من الجهة الغربية، ضم منطقة القدس في الوسط، وبعدها ضم الكتل الاستيطانية التي تتكون الآن والتي ستقسم الضفة إلى كنتونات. جاء خطة ألون عام 67 التي قضت بعدم السماح للفلسطينيين بالبناء أو بإنشاء أي مؤسسات أو منشآت أو بنى تحتية أو قرى في مناطق الواقع في السفوح الشرقية والأغوار، وليس فقط في الأغوار، في السفوح الشرقية، أي في ما يسمى خط ألون. وضع هناك خط وهمي يمتد من الظهرية جنوبا إلى شرق بيت لحم وشرق القدس وشرق رام الله وشرق نابلس، ثم إلى منطقة شرق تياسير شرق طوباس ويصل إلى الشمال. هذه المنطقة التي تسمى السفوح الشرقية والأغوار شملها خط ألون. لاحقا أنشئ شارع رئيسي يربط هذه المناطق، سمي بشارع ألون، وهو موجود يمر وعلى هذا الحاجز أنشأت 6 حواجز عسكرية. هذه الحواجز هي حاجز الكونتينر، حاجز الظهرية، حاجز الكونتينر، ثم حاجز الطيبة، وحاجز بالقرب من رام الله، ثم حاجز معالي أفرايم شرق نابلس، ثم حاجز الحمراء في الأغوار الوسطى شرق البدان، ثم حاجز التياسير شرق طوباس. هذه الحواجز ال6 تمنع الوصول إلى مناطق السفوح الشرقية والأغوار المستهدفة في عملية الضم، ولذلك عندما جاءت انتفاضة الأقصى عام 2000 تم إغلاق هذه الحواجز، واللي صار بده ينزل على الغور بده تصريح.
This is the historical Palestine, and this is the gray area where they occupied it in 1948. And we still have West Bank. It was under the Jordanian control at that time until 1967, and Gaza Strip was following the Egyptian administration and the part of East Jerusalem here as we see in the map. While in 1967 the Israeli they occupied whole West Bank and Gaza Strip and East Jerusalem as well, so the Jordanian they get back on the east bank of the Jordanian River, and from that time like West Bank was under the Israeli control until 1995, which is the Palestinian Authority they came. So the first cities they gave it was Jericho and Gaza, and then the Palestinian Authority they came to Hebron, Bethlehem, and Ramallah, Salfit, Nablus, Tubas, and all those areas here as we see.
Azariya, a Palestinian city located 2 kilometers east of Jerusalem. It's bordered to the south by the town of Abu Dis, to the west by Ras Al Amud and the Al Aqsa Mosque, to the east by settlements of Ma'ale Adumim and the Prophet Musa, to the north by Zaim, Aisawiya and Anata, and to the northwest by Mount of Olives. Al-Azariya fell under Israel's hands in the 1967 war. Like the rest of the West Bank, it belonged to Jordan between 1951 and 1967. In December 2012, the head of Abu Dis local council stated that the municipal council received an official decision from the occupation army through the link requiring the confiscation of 386 dunams of joint lands between the towns of Abu Dis and Al-Azariya, and indicated that these lands are being swallowed up by expanded settlements of Ma'ale Adumim. The occupation forces also delivered notice requiring the confiscation of 415 dunams of Al-Azariya lands to expand the unsupervised settlements and the E1 project, which swallows up most of the lands of Palestinian citizens. Today, about 32,000 people live in the town, and most of them depend on trade and employment, despite their impact from the occupation measures.
تزهق يعني إذا كانت سيادة مغربية تنزل على القدس شبكات الدولة بالعمود. يعني سيادة مغربية بدك تكذب أصحابك تكذب، لأن بدك تمشي من هنا القدس تاخذ معك شبكتين بس يعني كذبة. لما كنا إحنا صغار كنا مثلا نخلص مصروفنا نروح من القدس ماشي، يعني نروح من القدس ماشي من ورا ونروح من القدس ماشي، يعني مش بعيدة، كانوا أولاد صغار. يعني أقول لك يعني هنا تقدر تكون يعني ضاحي من ضواحي القدس، بس يعني الجدار هذا صار 16 يعني هنا نبني جدار، نسوي جدار نوعين، جدار سميكي هذا وجدار حجر زي هذا.
قانون القدس الكبرى هو يضم 3 كتل استيطانية كبرى مع القدس. الكتلة الأولى هي غوشة سيون 23 مستوطنة، الكتلة الثانية معلي أدوميم، الكتلة الثالثة جبعات زئيف. هذه الكتل الثلاث فيها تقريبا 66 مستوطنة، تضيف 170 ألف مستوطن إلى سكان القدس، لهم حق الانتخاب حسب القانون القدس الجديد، القدس الكبرى الجديد. وفي نفس الوقت هم يخرجون أحياء فلسطينية من القدس اللي هي حي كفر عقب الواقع بجنوب رام الله أو شمال القدس، حي عناتة وشعفاط وحي السلام. وبالتالي تنشأ في القانون مجالس محلية تتبع للقدس، ولكن هذه المجالس المحلية لها انتخابات محلية لها ولا تنتخب في مدينة القدس. لماذا؟ لأن مدينة القدس بهذه الطريقة أصبح غالبية سكانها فلسطينيين، والآن احنا 42%، عام 2007 كنا 2006 كنا 36%، عام 1967 بعد الضم كنا 22%. إذا هناك التقديرات أنه في عام 2050 سنكون 55% يحمل هويات فلسطينية، ولذلك تصبح مدينة القدس هي مدينة فلسطينية يحكمها أقلية يهودية.
مبين من هنا اخرها اللي هو مش اردني ممكن تسمع فيها هاي نهاية الطريق.
The E1. It's an Israeli settlement planned to connect Jerusalem with a number of Israeli settlements located to the east of it in the West Bank, such as settlements of Ma'ale Adumim, through the confiscating Palestinian lands in the area and establishing new settlements. The plan prevents any possible Palestinian expansion into the villages located in this area by encircling them with settlements and creating demographic change within the policy of Jihadizing Jerusalem in what Israel call Greater Jerusalem.
هو المنطقة هون الموجودين فيها اسمها الخان الأحمر في أو التجمع احنا موجودين فيه في 35 عائلة بس. شرقي القدس هاي الكوريدور اللي يربط من العزرية حتى النبي موسى هاي في 3000 بدوي من قبيلة الجاهلين. هذا هم أصولهم من النقب. تم تهجيرهم 1951 في شهر 4، لأنه كان هناك قانون تجنيد الشباب البدو في الجنوب إلى الجيش إلى قوات الاحتلال الإسرائيلية، فكان رفض من الشيخ تبع الجاهلين. في شهر 4 كانت مفاوضات من 1948 إلى 1951، وكان الجواب النهائي والأخير هو رفض تجنيد أي شاب من قبيلة الجاهلين. في شهر 4 1951 كانت هناك اشتيرن والهجناء بقيادة شارون نفسه أجوا على القبيلة وقتلوا 6 أشخاص وحرقوا 15 بيت، والناس هربت وأخذوا قطعان من الإبل والغنم. فالناس هربت إلى شرقي الخليل، هي كانت تحت الحكومة الأردنية. وهذا موثق في مع الصليب الدولي، وموثق في وكالة الغوث الدولية. إذا ترجع لإمتى أخذوا جاهلين كانت موان لاجئين، ما يسمى كروت اللاجئين، هي 1952. ليش هون؟ لأنهم انتقلوا من شرقي الخليل إلى المناطق البدوي في كل أنحاء العالم. بده 3 أشياء: مناطق شاسعة للرعي رقم 1، 2 مياه، 3 مراكز لتسويق لمنتجاته. ليش الخان الأحمر أو الكوريدور هذا بالضبط شرقي القدس أو البوابة الشرقية للقدس؟ لأنه هنا بعد المستوطنة هاي في وادي القلب مليان ينابيع طبيعية فلسطينية، وفي على الجنوب من هنا في آبار مياه جوفية مليانة، ومن هنا إلى البحر الميت لا يوجد زراعة، ومن هنا إلى القدس هي 20 دقيقة في المركبة. ليش الخان الأحمر ضغط قوات الاحتلال أو قطعان المستوطنين وما يسمى حكومة الظل هي مجلس المستوطنات هو يضغط لي هدم الخان الأحمر، أنه هو موجود في خان أحمر في هذه القرية، موجود المدرسة الوحيدة وموجود فيها عيادة وموجود فيها المسجد، المدرسة الوحيدة اللي فيها 200 طالب لجميع التجمعات البدوية الموجودة هون. إذا تم اقتلاع هذا التجمع بالذات اللي هو 35 عائلة ما يقارب 200 نفر، هي إذا تم اقتلاعه من السهل خلخلة بقية التجمعات البدوية الباقية، لأن هناك سيكون لا يوجد مدرسة قريبة، فكل أب أو كل أب عنده أطفال هناك مشكلة في تدريسهم إذا هدموا هذا التجمع وأزالوه. أصعب لحظة هي كانت لحظات انتظار الجرافات، وكانت هناك وصول 5 محاولات لهدم الخان الأحمر بالجرافات، وكان هناك اعتقال للنساء واعتقال للرجال واعتقال لعشرات من الفلسطينيين المتضامنين والمتضامنين الدوليين، وكثير كانت هنا نساء تزيد أعمارها عن 80 سنة من الشعب الفلسطيني من شمال الضفة ومن جنوبها. لكن الشعب الفلسطيني، لا نقول أنا لوحدي كبدوي كفلسطيني بدوي، أنا أقول الشعب الفلسطيني هو حمل الخان الأحمر وليست أنا فقط لوحدي. كانت هناك أصعب لحظات هي مواجهة الجرافات وقوات الاحتلال بصدور عارية، الفلسطينيين الوزير والغفير والأستاذ والدكتور وكل الناس كانت هناك بصدور عارية، وقفت أمام الجرافات وأفشلت 5 محاولات لهدم الخان الأحمر. إلى شعوب العالم كله، إلى شعوب العالم كله، هذا أطول استعمار في العصر الحديث اللي هو الاحتلال الإسرائيلي. هناك يمنع الكهرباء عن الأطفال، يمنع الماء عن الأطفال، يمنع التدريس المدرسة في حالة خطر دائم، يمنع وصول الطلبة إلى المدارس. أنا أناشد كل من يرى هذه القرية أن يعتبر هذا الطالب هو ابنه، وهذا البيت هو بيته. الوقوف إلى جانب هذه القرية وإلى جانب الشعب الفلسطيني كاملة، ليس هذه القرية، إنما ما يواجهه هذه القرية تواجهه كثير من القرى الفلسطينية وكثير من المدن الفلسطينية. أنا أطالب المجتمع الدولي الوقوف إلى جانب الشعب الفلسطيني وتنفيذ قرارات اتخذت في مجلس الأمن وهيئة الأمم المتحدة 194 224 وكثير من القرارات، ولتنفذ المجتمع الدولي ينفذ ولو قرار واحد.
شو عليه مقال؟ شو العلم الابيض اللي حاط؟ تجمع عين شلال العوجة ما حكيت لك انا تتكون من فوق ال 800 ألف نسمة تقريبا فيما اكثر. طبعا التجمع هذا في عندنا اكثر من مشكله، في منطقه اطلاق نار على جنوب التجمع، مستوطنين ومستوطنين على فوق التجمع، وعندك مشاكل الميه. وطبعا التجمع هذا كله يجيب ميه على حسابه من منطقه بعيده تبعد 10 كيلو 12 كيلو بتنكات صغيره. يكلف الناس تانك تقريبا 3 كوب 3000 لتر يكلفهم 200 شيكل تقريبا. معاناه في الصيف، اللي عنده مواشي، اللي عنده غنم، اللي عنده شغلات زي هيك، يعني صعب عليه يحصل على الميه يعني شيء سهل، يعني الميه تكلفه شيء كثير. وبعدين عندنا الهدم، سياسه الهدم زي ما انت شايف كل شهرين ثلاث بيجوا يصوروا التجمع، واي شيء جديد او شيء توسع طبيعي نمو طبيعي بيجي الجرافات، بيجي التنظيم، بيجي الاداره المدنيه بيشيلوه كله.
بدل المرة 10 مرات، والناس عايشة ومستورة. هان ما بدهم الناس تعيش، ما بدهم الناس تنستر. إسرائيل دولة استعمارية لا أكثر ولا أقل.
لا احنا في تجمع الشلال العوجة كنا نعاني من قبل سياسة الضم أو سياسة صفقة القرن اللي بيقول عنها هاي، كان الناس بيعانوا من اعتداءات كثير، وكانت المحمية الطبيعية والترحيل والتهجير والشغلات هاي. لكن في بعد سياسة الضم أو صفقة القرن اللي أعلنوا عنها زادت الوتيرة بوتيرة أعلى، يعني هجمة شرسة، مستوطنين من اعتداءات، منها مضايقات، مصادرات، ترحيل، يعني سياسة مش طبيعية، يعني ضايقت الناس بشكل كبير. مكروت هي شركة إسرائيلية مسيطرة على كل المياه تقريبا في الضفة الغربية، يعني هي شركة مدعومة حكوميا، وهي شركة مسيطرة على كل ينابيع المية أو مجاري المية أو حيضان المية في الجوفية، هي مسيطرة عليهم هاي الشركة. والشركة هاي بتعطي اليهودي أو المستوطن اللي ساكن في المنطقة 10 أو 20 ضعف ما تعطي المواطن الفلسطيني. يعني الخط اللي يروح على الفلسطينيين 3 إنش، بينما يروح عليهم 8 إنش أو 10 إنش على كل مشاف، والمشاف اللي يتعدى كم عائلة. أما بينما القرية العوجة فيها 7000 8000 نسمة، عليها خط 4 إنش لا يكفي الناس لشرب المية. تسعين في المية من عمل الشباب في التجمع راس عين العوجة هو يعتمد على الشغل في المستوطنات أو عند الإسرائيليين بشكل مباشر، بسبب يعني تدمير مساحة المراعي وتدمير الاقتصاد الفلسطيني بشكل مقصود ومبرمج. الناس توجهت، الشباب توجهوا اللي كانوا معتمدين بشكل أساسي على المواشي وعلى الغنم وعلى الإبل والشغلات هاي، هسه يعني هم الجيل الجديد هذا كله يشتغل يوميات عند الإسرائيليين في المشافات.
We are in Maali Ephraim, and in this point we are on the extreme highest point of Alon Street. This is one of the most important areas because if we drive for like 20-25 minutes direct to the side of Jordan, which is in front of us, we can reach the Jordanian borders. If you can see from this landscape, we can see the borders of Jordan and the mountains of the other side of the east bank of the Jordanian River. The dead trees in Jordan Valley around 2.5 million trees, 500,000 for the Palestinian side and 1 million for the Israeli side and 1 million for the Jordanian side. It's one of the most important areas for agriculture and the natural sources. In our right side we can see Doma village, and it's one of the most important and famous villages because it's in the line of Alon Street, and it's the Wabshe family where they got burned by one of the most extreme settlers here in West Bank some years ago. So we are here in this area, which is Ma'ali Ephraim, and from this area we can observe and we can see a lone plan, which is all this line of Jordan Valley, the gray one, plus this red points here, which is the settlements around us. So this is the settlement of Ma'ali Ephraim. As we see, we are in this point here where was the checkpoint before. From this area you can see we observed all Jordan. Why we could see Jordan? Because this part here, it's the lowest in West Bank and in Palestine. It's reached until the Dead Sea around 400 meters under sea level from this side. One of the most important points about the east borders with Jordan, the Israeli security always looking for any protection they can have around them because of the propaganda of one day the Palestinians and the Arabs, they gonna occupy Palestine again and they gonna take and they gonna kill all the Israeli they are here. So one of the excuses they are giving as a security is to protect the east borders of Jordan, which is mean West Bank, it's the gate of the borders and it's the one it's in touch with Jordan from that border. They will protect the east borders by putting in the area behind me some basement of rockets where any attack could come in the future by Jordan. gonna come to Tubas and to Tamun in this area. So in this area, why Tamun? It's very important to end up here because Tamun, it's area B. Part of it, it's area C with Al Hamra checkpoint, and which is the last checkpoint of Alon Plan and Alon Street. Why it's very important? Because it's very important village because it's connect between the Jordan Valley from the Israeli side in area C and area B, and then you can go to Tubas and all the Jordan Valley from the Palestinian side, whereas the Palestinian, they own their sources, so they want to confiscate all the sources of water in this area. Plus it's the mountain of Tamun, which is the natural reserve. It's observing the both sides of Tubas and the Jordan Valley from the other side. So from these both areas, they want to build a settlement in this area, as we're gonna see, and from there they can observe all this area and protect it in the way they see it's important for their security, and protecting also Al Hamra checkpoint for any plan in the future to annex more lands in this area as well. تعال. وانت بتروحون امتى تسهر برفيقي. لما انت رفيقي اخذت بقول لك بروح على علي رفيقي. لا بعض التنين خلاص.
يعني نطلب احنا من المجتمع الغربي او المجتمع العالمي انه ينظر للناس هاي بعين الاحقية في الحياة.
وسيبقى الشعب الفلسطيني، نحن لسنا هنود حمر، نحن شعب فلسطيني ونحن أصحاب أرض، أرضنا باقية ونحن باقون ما بقي الزعتر والزيتون.
Thank you, Ehab. I know you put a lot of time and effort into this film. Aspects of it are just so disturbing. Any of the people watching, if you've got questions, please send them to the Q&A button, and we can put them to Ehab. Until you do that, I want to ask Ehab, how different was the tour that you made for us from the ones that you normally take with people from overseas?
Actually, it's totally different because you cannot include all the information you would like to inform people about it in 40 minutes or 45 minutes. So while you're doing the tour, like for 10 days, you have all the time to explain and to talk and to live with people over there. While when you're doing a movie or a short movie about it, you just need to be specific about some points, so somehow it could show part of the reality, but not all the reality. Since one of those people we had interview in our tour, um, it's totally different when you see them on the ground, when you talk to them, when they host you in their houses, and you see they are living in a metal houses, whatever, and they have just one generator for electricity. When you have like the tea or the coffee with those people, and they keep laughing and talking. One of the nice, beautiful stories I would like to share with all of you, it's about Abu Khamis Eid in Al Khan Al Ahmar. He was talking so fast, which is he's a Bedouin, and originally Bedouins they're native speaker and they speak really fast. But I asked him many times to slow down for the translation, and he told me I don't have any guarantee to finish this interview. That's why I should speak fast. Maybe they will destroy the house in 5 minutes. So we were laughing about it, but I know it comes out of pain when he was talking about it. So I guess those things behind the scenes, also people they miss to see in a virtual tour or in a movie tour, and that's what always give a different meaning for the tour when it's really on the ground, when the people they visit Palestine and they can experience that, and they can see. By my camera, for example, I can direct one point, while when you are there, you can look around you and choose what you would like to see.
Yes, it makes sense. And obviously, people are getting a different understanding when they can spend time talking to people and see how they live. And I think that's a really interesting point that he made, that factor about time, that he was talking so quickly because any minute his house could be demolished. And there's also this factor that in other areas where people are being told that their house has to be demolished, sometimes they're given, I think it's a couple of hours to pack a suitcase, and that's all they can take. And that's another aspect of this thing of time. You don't know what's going to happen the next moment in your life, and you don't have that control.
Exactly, I agree with you, but it's not just about the 2 hours. Sometimes this is what I would like to add. This is what I had the feeling with those people when I was there. They ask you to empty your house in 2 hours, but what if I don't want to leave? What if I want to stay here? And this is something else. Still, like, they can destroy the house, and after that you are out. Abu Khamis said, I'm a Bedouin, I could live 60% of my life in the sun, and this is how it's his hard life originally, but as a Bedouin. But what if I don't want to leave? What you gonna do? You're gonna kill me? You're gonna arrest me? What else? The house, I could build it again, but what else if I don't want to leave?
So what does happen in that situation when someone doesn't want to leave? Their house has been destroyed. Do they just rebuild?
sometimes, yeah, they rebuild. Sometimes there's some Palestinian volunteers, some people, they fund this kind of metal houses again. Some people, they go voluntary and sometimes those people, they build it by themselves. Sometimes some international activists also, they go there and they help to build those houses again. So it's kind of sharing responsibility. Everyone could feel he could do something, he could just go and do it. And that's something very, very important when we have a solidarity in and outside Palestine, because this is give a different feeling for those people. They are not alone.
Can I just ask, in other areas that of the West Bank, when houses are being demolished, we've been told people have to pay for the bulldozers. Does that happen everywhere?
Not in Al-Khan Al-Ahmar or in Shalal Al-Auja, but it happens more around Jerusalem and in the east part of Jerusalem, whereas people, they supposed to destroy their houses by themselves, or the Israeli forces, they could come and after that they will send you how much you're supposed to pay for destroying your house, and somehow including the gasoline of the bulldozers and the Israeli military car jeeps and all this. And sometimes if there's any clashes happen in that area, they could arrest the people themselves as well. There is also other point. Sometimes if someone in West Bank joined the military resistance, or sometimes they kill them in checkpoints by mistakes and they accuse them, they try to stab a soldier or whatever, they come, if your house has 3 stairs, they could destroy 1 floor and you are not allowed to renovate it anymore. So it will be just destroyed house and you cannot live in it anymore. So if you want to build a new house, you go and you buy a new piece of land and you buy there and you build there, but not in the same area where was your house. So it will be closed forever.
Yes, that's a great sense of loss. We're getting lots of questions coming through now, so I'll move on. One question we've got coming through is, how was it for you filming this tour, talking to people in the villages, seeing what is happening? The lack of access to water, the bulldozers, what impact did that have on you?
It's always, it leaves more than one impact. The first thing, I'm kind of used to this kind of communities because I work with them since like 9 years. But it's always, it gives you that feeling you should be angry. You don't know why, but you should be angry. You cannot even express it to be sad, because sadness in this situation, it's not useful. You live sometimes the area you live, Al-Khan Al-Ahmar, you live any other areas, and sometimes you still for 1, 2, 3 days just thinking about a child you saw is running there, or about a sentence someone told you, or about a video they gave you from the archive, and you're supposed to deal with all this memory they have. And you're a Palestinian, you have your own struggle sometimes. And that's why I couldn't film Al-Khan Al-Ahmar from the main street, for example, because if they will see any camera, the Israeli police cars, they will come and they will ask you, what are you doing here? This is if they will be nice with you. There is something very important. All West Bank, as we saw in the map, it's occupied territories again after 2002, and we are living under a military law. That means all the civilians, Palestinian in West Bank, they are guilty until they prove they are innocent. So in any case, an Israeli soldier or Israeli policeman or women, they shoot you, you're supposed to prove you are innocent even if you're dead.
Sorry,
so they will not.
Yes.
Yeah. So they will not. Yeah. So they will not judge the soldiers until you prove you are innocent. You're lucky sometimes you could get cameras, but sometimes most of the cameras it's on in that streets it's for them. It's for the Israeli military or security, intelligence security service. But when you're talking about areas like the Bedouin areas, especially in Al-Oja, he mentioned something in the documentary. It's the fire zone. The fire zone. It's something very, very important, because every year you could hear about 1 or 2 childs from the Bedouin communities. They got killed by a bomb exploded, because the soldiers, after they shoot or they make their trainings, they leave behind them all what they were playing with in that area. So sometimes some of those bombs they didn't explode. So with the temperature, it's really high temperature in Jordan Valley, especially in summer, could arrive to 55 degrees. And with the kids, they are playing with those kind of bombs. It could explode, and this has happened so much. And there is so many different areas to have a like the closed military zone or the fire zone. So sometimes it's also for me as a filmmaker, if I want to make like a short or a long documentary, it's difficult to take your shots. It's difficult to carry your camera over there. And in the next episodes, I'm gonna do it for this project. I would like to, I will host a journalist. He gets shot by the Israeli army and they left him bleeding. And this could happen every Friday. So there is no protection for you. Doesn't matter who you are. You are a human, you're a civilian, you are a journalist, you are a paramedic. There is no protection for anyone in that area.
What's the most important action we in Australia can do to support the cause of the Palestinian struggle?
In my opinion, for all the international communities, is the most important point is to really understand deeply what's going on always on the ground. This is something very, very important, because I guess Palestinians before international, we are losing ourselves sometimes for how much we are going in a conversation, complicated conversations, but sometimes we are really missing the action on the ground. And this is something very, very, very important. And I guess I don't know the Australian society very well to understand which dimension you could move with it. But I guess I'm talking about people. I'm not talking about government or push or pressure on governments. I'm talking about people by the events, by the informing people with what's going on always on the ground, with the historical background about that area. And I guess Farhan, he said something very important. At least if each one around the world understand we have the right to live a normal life, I guess this is the smallest thing we could really as a humans do together as a solidarity. But the rest, it comes over by the activities you are organizing, always informing people, maybe a solidarity, but you're organizing tours to Palestine. But I cannot ask more than this. And I guess you are leading you are leading this kind of activities there. And I guess you have also ideas to improve and to inform people more about it, to have really a strong, strong real solidarity for the Palestinian side in your country.
Someone's asked, how can we better inform people in Australia about what's really happening there? Do you think that films like this one would be one of the really important outlets, or can you think of other ways that people in Australia can be informed about what's happening?
I guess the media today doesn't hide anything. So there is a very important like websites around Palestine publishing and posting always in English, hosting activists from different places, not always the same people. Just also bring the new generation. Let them. I recognize myself here in Palestine from the old generation. So also the new generation, the 20s. They have already
a different vision about the vision maybe I think, or the direction I would like to have about our situation here. So it's always good to mix between like different kind of experiences, the activities, maybe small actions on the streets, to show like what is going on in the ground. But I guess media is the most important one. I guess it can reach everyone, especially in our time in COVID-19 now.
Mm-hmm. It's hard with COVID-19 because no one can get inside, no one can travel there.
That's also how can I say, it's one of the difficulties about if I could say it, also the aid or the fund. We are I always try to be diplomatic, to not go on this side, but also one of the most important points we need to be aware of it is what's the role of the international organization here, and like big names like United Nations, like European Union, like all those people, what they are doing here. Do they really help the Palestinian people? If you follow this kind of numbers, the millions, the billions they are pushing here in Palestine, where you could see that, why always it's just about pushing money, but we don't really see any strong political opinion on the ground, for example, to protect a village like Al Khan Al-Ahmar or Al-Oja or any Palestinian, and somehow. As Eid Abu Khamisi said before, just we need one law to be on the ground, just to understand there is a real action. It comes from the world to the Palestinian subject.
But also people have seen the situation in those villages that you filmed, and one person has asked what's the best support for the people in the isolated villages like Khan el-Hamar and el-Oja. What would you suggest?
I guess it's to focus on the elements it's making them staying there. Like Abu Khamisi mentioned, the school.
Mm.
The school, it's built in a hidden way, like in a slavery sneaky way in the Israeli law in that area to keep it up. So for example, if we can just improve, they don't need a hospital there, but just the clinic there, the school over there. Sometimes some communities, you could saw like the kids, they are walking like in a tunnels to go to their schools. So sometimes if there is a fund, a big fund from different communities to bring a bus for those kids, because sometimes they just really walk for 20 kilometers, 25 kilometers in the morning. And now we are talking about summer, but you could see by the filming, or you could hear by the filming, there's a lot of wind. So imagine in winter, it's a flat area. So like in the rain, in the dust time, in the dust period in summer. So this is one of the most important things. Plus to improve the health sector in that area, to improve the clinic over there, to support them and to follow the activities what they are doing on the villages, in the villages itself. Like for example, in Al-Oja, most of the people are unemployed, so they are working in the settlements as slaves for the Israeli. So if we could just do small things, or if they produce something in the future, they could really market it, they could sell it over the seas for other countries. That could make like a financial support or empowering for them in a way. But in the other way, it's not a charity, it's something they are producing. We improve the quality of what they are producing. On the other side, they understand they have a job and they could reach all over the world.
I think the person that asked that question had in mind something like, for example, funding. Could funds be raised to help, say, like a school bus or something like that? And we are asking for anyone that would care to make a donation to help any of the people that were depicted in your film, and they can go now to the web page. It's www.fpmelbourne.org if you want to make a donation. Now, there's some more questions. Someone wants to know given the control that the IDF has, what were the risks of filming for this movie for you?
Well, a bullet, I don't know where. It depends of how is their mood. Could be I get arrested by the army. If sometimes you are a public speaker and you talk to people, they could deny you cannot travel anymore all over the world, so they could bring you back from the borders. Sometimes it could reach to we have what we call it like the administrative file, which is they could arrest you without any reason, and you could spend in jail 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you don't know. Each 3 months they renew it for you, how much they want you to stay in jail. So there is no expectations, or you could just take the risk and do it and make a short, simple movie for the world to see it. And for me, this is what I can do in my life. I learned English in the street to talk to people and to explain in my English how is the situation in Palestine, and try to provide some information. I carry my camera and I go in a different places because we need to document everything. By the way, the Israeli government around 1 year ago, they put a budget like 40 million shekels to create their documentation about the Israeli state, because it's 72 years. So we already own our history, we own our lands, we own a lot of stories, so we can already do something by that. But it's a message always. As we said before, no risk, no fun. So I will always take this risk, and I know a lot of people, they will take this risk to show the reality.
In making the film, was there something that was particularly risky for you?
Next to the checkpoints most of the time, in the main streets, like the moment I was interviewing myself and I was talking about what's gonna happen in the east borders behind me, there were 4 settlers next to me. So I was speaking English, and they were looking at me, okay, and what else? But the problem is they can attack you, but you cannot defend yourself. That's the biggest problem. So sometimes you need to be like do it and just run away, because it's very difficult to stay in that area. Sometimes it was useful, fine, it's okay, and we enjoyed the landscape as well.
I've got quite a long question here for you, if you can bear with me. The atrocities of the occupation are well documented and well known by the international community, whose lack of action is tragically also known. My question is about the Arab community. How can you explain the recent normalisation agreements between Israel, the UAE and Bahrain? Why does the Arab community turn a blind eye to these atrocities? Why has the Palestinian community failed to draw Arab states to its side?
I guess it's all about interests, and I guess in the last 20 years, a lot of leaders and mayors and presidents of those countries has been changed, and in this way you could see, for example, not just between Israel and Emirates, for example, or Israel and Saudi Arabia. No, it's about itself. It's the, let's say, like the war is they are doing for the transportation points, to occupy it as much they can, like settlements around all the different seas for their transportation and their trading lines around the world. That's in the first point. No one can say Israel it's a weak in somehow, because Israel today is leading the technology and the military technology, where all the countries around the world it's become like a need for their technology, for example. And this is didn't come by mistake. They are working about that since like 1953, since they established what they call it the unit 8200 in the Israeli army. So I guess it's more about interests. The people, they are not all blind, but in the other side, I guess, as we say before, it's the longest occupation ever. So I guess also people, they have different interests in somehow to deal with Israel. By the way, I'm from the generation in Palestine. When you ask me if you are Arab, I say no, I'm Palestinian. I speak Arabic, but we all present ourselves as a Palestinian, which is we are something different. I'm not trying to offend anyone, but we what you see today out loud or in the media, it's already there since 10, 20, and 30 and 40 years ago between Arab countries and Israel. So it's not something new. It could surprise the world, but not us.
Mm-hmm. Does the Israel peace group, Peace Now, help with its settlement?
Israel peace groups?
There's a peace group called Peace Now.
Yeah.
It's just that I'm not quite sure what this person means. It says help with its settlement. I don't know if they're referring to settlements.
Okay.
Can the person, maybe the person that sent that question through, could they rephrase it so it's a little bit clearer, if you don't mind? I'll just in the meantime go on to the next question, which is, how do Palestinians feel about tourists coming into their lives?
About tourists, well, we cannot call them tourists. I guess, especially maybe if you go to Bethlehem, yes, the souvenir shops, they will be happy to let you pay in dollars. But about the rest of Palestinians, what I saw is they are, and I guess some of you, they experienced that before. You are guests, you are visitors, you are not tourists. We don't deal in that way about it. I guess Palestinian people, they know, hi, how are you? I love you, but they try to use it all the time, like to welcome people, to show their welcoming for the world. And Palestinians, they feel guilty because they know, like, the Israeli media and the Zionist media, it's controlling all over the world, and somehow they all the time, the Palestinians, what they think, sometimes you think we are terrorists. So they are trying to show all their welcoming to prove, no, we are normal people. We have the right in a good life, and we stay here. Our life is difficult, but it's few times where you could find people, they don't understand what tourists they are doing in Palestine. But mainly Palestinians, they ask what those people they are doing, where they came from, why they are here. But that's kind of their life. They ask about everything.
Someone's asked about the settlers. They've said that they're interested in the settlers. Are the settlers country? This is, again, sorry about this. This is a question that's not very clear either. I think they're saying are the settlers in the towns they occupy and build, building something that's sort of a reminder of their original country?
The settlers, they are building something, remind them of their original country?
Yeah, so I'm really sorry about this, but this question.
No, it's okay. No, it's okay. I'm so sorry. We just want to understand the question. Yeah, their original countries, the way they are building, it's mainly United States. So most of the settlements you see, it's the design of the houses and the buildings in United States, not in Palestine. So if they want something to remind them their country, I guess they could go back there. But it's a good question, because why the settlers, they are just building in West Bank? That's something very important, because if we look at the Israeli society somehow, between the Ashkenazi, the Mizrahi, and the settlers with the different backgrounds, they don't believe they want Yafo or Akko or Haifa or Tel Aviv or Naqab. No, they want Judea and Samaria. Judea and Samaria, for them, it's West Bank. That's the meaning. So if you look at most, like the list of the names of the settlements, it came from Canaanites' name or from Judaism, from the Torah. That's something very important. And let's say if we could say they have the right to be in Palestine, could you come back to your country and to kill the people that are there, or you come back to your country and you stay there? That's something different. You come as a occupation power, or you come back as you have a right in this land and you ask your role, for example. That's something different. And if you go for a different kind of like settlements, everyone have a different perspective. Everyone have a different beliefs. So I just want to understand by any map, if anyone could prove to me where their lands here before, since let's say 3,000 years ago. If a land it's passed by people, if people passing, if civilizations passing, does not mean you are staying there forever. This is the first point. And the second point, who's first? Let's ask this question: who's first? Who's first here? Who's came from different routes, for example? That's something very important. But I guess by the information the Zionist movement, they always publishing, the amount of books you could see about that, it's already, I can understand people when they get confused about it.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that's answered the question that was posed. Someone else has asked, how important is a strong, charismatic leader for capturing international support?
How much it's important to? Sorry?
Yeah, how important is a strong, charismatic leader for capturing international support?
It's something very important, especially I guess we had, if we want to talk, let's talk, if it comes to my mind when you say leaders, it comes to me two examples. Some people, they will not be happy about my answer, but the first one is Arafat, and the second one is Mahmoud Abbas. Mahmoud Abbas, he tried in all the ways to take the international attention.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened? Annexation plan. So in this way, sometimes I'm telling that to the Palestinians somehow, to the Palestinian leaders, if we still have one of them, it's very important to focus on the Palestinians. Every solution will come from the Palestinians themselves. Any support can come from any solidarities, from any international communities. It helps for sure. You are a partner on that. But the decision and the process and the 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 mechanism of that, the wheels of this freedom or liberation or solution, it's supposed to come from the Palestinians themselves.
Mm-hmm. The person that asked the question about the settlements have just clarified what they meant was there's a settlement watch program. Are you familiar with that? And that they document the settlements and are trying to end the occupation.
I guess sometimes we are, I didn't see this documentary, but I guess I knew as a journalist, you know that as well. Sometimes the camera is a big liar. I could tell anything on the camera, but what is my action on the ground? It's the chaos theory in somehow. I spend documentaries, whatever, and I believe there is some of them, they believe in peace, but which kind of peace? And this is something, it takes me to the other level, and it's something I'm looking at since 1 week. There is also a peace group in Israel, and they say we're gonna end the occupation. How they gonna end the occupation? By normalize their life with the Palestinians somehow, but to take the Palestinian to behave as the Israeli over there, not to do the opposite, not to be Palestinians, by taking the Palestinians to the other side to be an Israeli. And say we cannot live in war, so how much we can offer for them jobs, how much we can offer for them a good life, but this is okay. But what's about the law? I don't have the same rights. I don't have the same freedom of movement. I don't have the same quantity of water every day in my house. I don't have the feeling I live in my land anymore. And this is not gonna be a peace. When we are talking about peace, we are talking about a value. And in my opinion, value, it comes always from equality. So if we feel equal, for sure we will have values. But if we don't feel equal, for sure someone of us will behave in a different way. Mm-hmm. But how I can believe this peace, and just if I open the door of my house where I sit here, half kilometer, there is a military base. A soldier with M16 could shoot me and I could die. Peace need actions. Occupation need documentaries, and peace need actions.
Mm-hmm. The activist at the end of the film, Ehab Ghafri, he talked about Palestinians not being like the Native Americans because this is still their land. What do you think he meant?
I know it's a big question, but the first thing is not me. I said that, he said that, but I guess he will never mean something bad about it. For example, he will always mean something good. But what he's I guess he's around 55, 60 years old, and I guess he just want to keep himself patient, to live his life, and to believe he's not gonna be denied, he's not gonna be out of his village, and he gonna one day see a liberation or freedom. He gonna continue his life in a good way, and this is as an example. Actually, I didn't ask him direct what he meant about it, but what I can understand, he just want to keep his identity. Because maybe what in his mind is like there is no like Native American they exist anymore, while we know there is. But you need to excuse people sometimes, because Palestinians, they cannot travel. A man like him, he cannot have a library home, for example, with a lot of books. But I promise you, if you mention for me a name of a book about a Native American, about their life and about their journey, I'm gonna send this book to him to read it and to know more about the situation. And I'm gonna ask him what he meant about it. Maybe one day we could reach out or maybe write an article about it, what Abu Khamis meant about it when he mentioned that sentence in the movie.
It sounded like he just had the impression that the American Indians had lost touch with their land, that they'd lost their sense of culture and identity, which isn't the case. But I think he has picked up that impression somehow. And he was saying that he didn't want that to happen to the Palestinians, to happen to him.
I guess and I believe what he meant, as each Palestinian could mention this sentence, is I don't want to lose my identity by forcing. I don't want to get how much they get of like actions and how much they work on them and how much they try to deny them from life. He said, I don't want to reach the struggle they were there.
Yes, exactly. Another question is, why does Israel want to annex this particular area, Alon? Is Israel wanting to annex all the West Bank eventually?
Thank you for your question, but this question, it takes many dimensions. The first thing for Alon plan is because it's kind of empty. As we know before from the movie, they want to include more settlers in Jerusalem to vote, so there will be authority, but they will, because they are a minority still until now, because the population of Palestinians is increasing always. And why that area as something very important is the water and the east borders. Some years ago, an American senator said Jordan is not going to be in a stable situation for a long time, a stable security situation for a long time. It's fear Israel for two important points. The first point, this is in my map, as we see here. This is Jericho, and this is the borders. And if I will drive from Jericho to Jordan, I need just to pass 3 kilometers, which is 3 different borders: Palestinian, Israeli, and Jordanian. And in this point, what is very important is to put the basement of their rockets to protect their lands, as they did in the Golan Heights. The second point, the most important point, after 25 years of agreement between Jordan and Israel, Jordan took back some lands from Israel. They were already rented for 25 years instead of an occupation. So in that point, it was like a sign for the Israeli, it's the moment to protect Palestine, to protect Israel from the Jordanian borders. This is something very important. The third important point, that area, it's the diversity of the land there. You can plant whatever you want. 1 million roses, 2.5 million date trees. You can have different kind of pepper, for example. You could have different kind of banana trees in that area. And there is something very important. The world doesn't look at it. Israel, it's the only country in the world, they have the nuclear bombs in the desert. And that needs a high quantity of water every day to make the bombs cold. This is what they did, as we see here in the map. This is the Jordan River with the Dead Sea, and they convert part of the water to a Naqab in this area, in the middle, so they could make they could make farms, and they could make the nuclear bombs always cold. That's why Israel always struggling, because of the cold water they need to have for the nuclear bombs. The salty water of the sea doesn't work in that case.
Israel continues to deny that it has nuclear weapons, doesn't it?
I guess no, he explained everything to the world, and he's still living in Jerusalem, and everyone can meet him and talk to him. I had an interview with him before, and by the way, he was arrested in a jail where is the Palestinian prisoners they are, but in a separate side. because they were not recognizing him as an Israeli anymore.
Mhm.
That's something very important. No one can deny that, because behind the mountain here, Ebal Mountain, it's 940 meters, which is the highest top in the north of West Bank in Nablus city. There is a basement of rockets behind this mountain, so the Israeli army could shoot all the Middle East with the nuclear rockets or
I
bombs.
wasn't denying that. I wasn't challenging that. I was just saying, just pointing out that Israel still continues to deny that they've got nuclear weapons.
I guess they have authority on the media, so they can like raise up their voice and their opinion all over, and from a different kind of like a political perspective on the other side. But this is the new war, and the last the last post, it comes out from the defense ministry of the IDF. They say we could occupy Jordan in 2 tanks and 1 rocket. What is the 1 rocket?
Mm.
That's always make things it's clear. And I guess there is an article, it's written by a professor or a senior in Harvard, and she's originally Jewish, but she's living in United States, and she wrote about the interest of the water with the nuclear bombs in Naqab desert as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to follow up.
Someone's sorry, we can mention the name later. We can post it, and you can post it in the page of the organization after the interview.
Yeah, that'd be good.
For the article. Yeah,
that'd be really helpful. I'm sure a lot of people would be interested in following that up. Someone's asked, what sort of response has there been from the international community, that is, if at all? And I would assume that they're asking for the response to the annexation proposal.
I get, so what is the response? What we're supposed to do? We have a big problem now. We are, at least when they came out loud with the annexation, we are in a COVID-19. So so the problem is, even the Palestinians, they cannot move easy to those areas to help the people over there. Plus the economical crisis we have in Palestine. And I guess to respond at that at the moment, it's very difficult for the Palestinians. I guess the PA, they are working in a diplomatic level, but that's not enough. If we are talking about the international, I guess we need to have really like somehow like kind of like large demonstration. If I wanted to talk practically on the ground, to pressure the governments to do something with the annexation. But I always believe it's very important for the international community to help to raise up this voice. But on the other side, also the Palestinians, they're supposed to take this place in the annexation. But at the moment, I am so honest with everyone, I don't think so there is anything on the ground, except some people, they could go and have a solidarity with Jordan Valley and somehow. Mentioning other point about the annexation is not selected or limited by time, because the annexation, they went out loud and they were talking about it. The 30% of West Bank, they're already working on it since around 30 years. And there is book, it's written in the 80s about this annexation. So it's not just the problem, it's the annexation at the moment. It's what's gonna happen after the annexation. How much they will annex more lands from Area B or Area A. And this is something could be difficult in the future, because if they could really squeeze and like put the Palestinians in small areas, this is gonna make it like a big problem. Plus destroying the PA. I don't say the PA in somehow it's really perfect, but I think we're gonna go in the biggest problem is if the communities they start to control and we bring back the law of the communities somehow. So it will be as they were calling us, people without land for land without people. So we will be really nothing. We will be without identity. We will be without heritage. And this is what Israel, it's working on it at those moments by pushing so much guns. The amount of like weapons it's exporting to West Bank in a cheap prices, it's really incredible. To make the Palestinians, to make sense, to make the Palestinians really have a fight or a civilian fight between each other. And each powerful community could control more and more. This is where we are scared to arrive after this annexation if BA will be destroyed in a security level somehow.
As a counter to that, do you think that's a positive move that the PA and Hamas have announced that they're going to cooperate and they're going to hold elections shortly?
If they will do that, I will buy your ticket free for Palestine. I will invite you to come to visit Palestine again. I hope so. That's gonna happen, because I guess this is the last chance for both of them to be together and to save the remains of the Palestinian society and the Palestinian lands. So it will be a good point if they both agree about it and have elections again.
That might counter the flooding of guns into the West Bank.
Sorry?
If there was a strong political force, if both parties joined together and there's a sense of purpose, it might counter weapons being, weapons flooding into the West Bank that can only cause divisions.
I guess they can work hard, but what one of the most important points, even in West Bank now, as you know, there's Area C, Area B, and Area A. And since Abu Mazen, he stopped all the cooperation with the Israelis somehow, the Palestinian police and the Palestinian security cannot move out of Area A. That's mean if there is a fight in Area B or in Area C, the police cannot reach that area. That's something very difficult. So the police, they start to work in that areas with the civilian clothes. And since Abu Mazen, he stopped the cooperation, the Israeli army arrest every policeman they could catch in Area B or in Area C.
Yes, there's a group of policemen, about a dozen policemen that were arrested the other day.
They even arrested like some police men 2 nights ago.
Yeah, these were police that were arrested, about a dozen Palestinian police.
That's the reason, because they are not allowed to move out of Area A, for example. That's something very important, and something it comes by Oslo agreement. For people, if they don't know, in each city there is supposed to be a selected amount of weapons in each police station. So they already knows what is the capacity of the police in that city or in the other city. That's something it's very important. That's why they try to push more like in the other side, to like in a gang way to sell weapons in West Bank in between Palestinian people. So in that way, the Palestinian Authority or the Palestinian police, let's talk about security, they are not gonna control the situation in the future if that happen, and PA will be gone.
Yeah, it's a policy of undermining the Palestinians. Just moving on to the next question. I believe this person's thanking you for your efforts It's showing beautiful Palestine, albeit under an ugly, illegal and violent occupation. He wants to know, how often do you organise physical tours and who typically participates in them? And do you think virtual tours, like the one tonight, can become a new platform for empowering isolated communities such as in the villages?
About the physical tours, I guess when life was okay, we were having everyday tours. And when it's about communities from different countries, we could do like every month tour or every 2 months, or it depends of the vacation of people. So we organize their time and we bring. So we have like an individual tours, and we have sometimes coupled tours. Sometimes we have a group tours. So everyone is welcoming here. About the virtual tours or the online tours, I guess also it has a good impact for people they cannot reach Palestine at the moment or in the future or somehow. But I guess we need to build a good basement and foundation for the line of those tours. So it's not just politics. We can also know about the agriculture. We also can know about the Palestinian life, the social life, the food. We have really a good, really long heritage of life in Palestine because of the civilizations passed here before. So I guess it leaves a good impact, and I'm also so happy to be, for my first time in my life, to talking to Australian people.
I've got a follow-up question from our previous discussion. This one's very specific. The person wants to know about how much would a school bus cost for the students who have such a long walk in harsh conditions? And could you tell us that in the local currency?
Well, I don't know exactly these numbers. I'm not I never bought a bus before, actually, but it's something. I guess if the people they want really to follow up, we can put them in contact with the people themselves, and we can ask for them about those prices. I don't have it. I'm so sorry. I don't have it at the moment, but we could put them in contact with the people direct without any promises. We just say we're gonna check if there is any kind of project we could help, or about the bus, or but I don't have exactly budget. But the only thing I could explain, the bus is not just the problem. The bus always need a driver, and the bus also need a gasoline, and gasoline, it's recognized one of the, like, let's say, highest prices or really high price of gasoline we pay here. It's really expensive. So we cannot, for example, bring a bus. In the other side, we cannot really find a driver or find like the amount of the gasoline. But I appreciate the idea to think about having a project with those people. But please, they can contact you, and I can give you the number of Abu Khamis and Farhan, and they can communicate with them direct.
I think that one was meant for further discussion. So maybe that can be taken up later with the Free Palestine Melbourne group. Yes. Especially if we've got donations coming in, that's something that could be considered then. Someone wants to know, if you had one wish, what would it be?
One wish. A moment where I can really think I could have kids here without thinking of what's gonna be tomorrow. I cannot think about it because it's really scary, and I don't think so one day I will have kids, because it's something personal. But since you ask something personal, I don't think so. I could have kids because I fear they will face what I had in my life. And that's it. One wish, it's enough.
Understand. Could I just quickly ask one question? What do you think at the moment, what percentage of the West Bank and the Jordan Valley do you think has already been annexed?
On the ground,
In effect.
we could say all West Bank gets annexed, no? But when they say about 30% of West Bank, yeah, I could see by going and filming in West Bank, Jordan Valley, it's already done. Except that Palestinian people, Bedouins, they are living in that villages. It's everything. It's in the hand of the Israeli. They are controlling everything. But the problem is, and this is something also need other tool. For example, in the future, it's not just the West Bank from this side. Let's say it's not. This is the Jordan Valley. This is the area where we had been in our tour. But the problem now, the new problem is this line in the west, which is all the West Bank borders. It's surrounded by a wall from this area. And the wall is taking around 16% of West Bank. But now they need to add 11% of West Bank to protect the wall somehow. So as we said before, they are squeezing West Bank in somehow from the east and from the west on the other side. And this is something gonna be very difficult for the Palestinians, especially also the west part, the west part of the West Bank. It's working also in agriculture somehow. So they're gonna destroy any basement of agriculture or a financial support the Palestinians they can get by themselves.
A few more questions coming in. Is Israel dumping radioactive waste in the occupied territory?
Sorry, again the question?
Yes. Is Israel dumping radioactive waste in the occupied territory? Are you aware of that?
I'm not sure I get the question, and I'm so sorry about that. But
well, I think we referred earlier on to the manufacture of nuclear weapons, and when that happens, there's radioactive waste that has to go somewhere. And this person is asking, is that waste, which no one really wants, dumped in the occupied territory? You're not aware?
I don't think so. But Israel, it's already using every line of defense for attack. And if you look at most of the wars they did in 1973, Barleaf line, and the war also in Lebanon in 2006, Israel doesn't build something to defense. Israel in a military way building a defense line, but it's already is the same line of attack. So when we're talking about that, there is the moment what they call it the zero moment, which is they know there is no nation of Israel anymore. There is no Zionist Jewish, as they call them, as we call them, because we want to divide them from the Jewish people, because we don't have a problem with the Jewish people. So they're already using those lines. So when you visit Palestine one day, you will understand there is nothing on the ground is wise. It's just a way to, first of all, to bother you by your day and to make you scared and to make you feel you are observed. And in the last point is they are building anything to defend themselves. And West Bank, yes, for sure, will be one of the first defense lines for them. Instead of having a war in Tel Aviv, to have it in Nablus is better for them.
And very cynical. I think we should be about to wrap up now. someone has just sent through thanks to you, saying how informative tonight has been. And I would like to urge anyone who's thinking of or who's been inspired by the talk and the film tonight to visit the West Bank and the Jordan Valley, to make sure if you do go, don't go on the Israeli government organised tours. Make sure you go on a tour such as the one run by Ehab, or go for his tour, and you can find it on Facebook, and it's called 24 Palestine Tours. And I noticed, because I checked it out yesterday, you've got a little drop box that answers any queries. So anyway, please check out his Facebook page. And please don't forget that if you want to make a donation to help any of the people that you saw in the film tonight, go to the free Palestine Melbourne Facebook page. That's www.fpmelbourne.org, and hopefully we can get something across to help some of the people that were seen in the film. Lastly, thank you so much, Ehab. It's been such an informative, really insightful night, and I hope we can do it again another time.
So I'm so glad we had to talk face to face or by Zoom, but I'm so glad to meet you as well, and thanks for everyone was here. And I want to say something for everyone is, doesn't matter what the life will bring, we always smile to confuse the world, because we don't have any other thing to do in our life. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, Free Palestine Melbourne, for organising this and for pulling it off. It's been quite an achievement.